Hey, what's up, everybody? I was scrolling through 8th Wall Project Library the other day and found an awesome template that made me want to create one of my favorite old iPhone and Android phone games called Doodle Jump. If you've never played it, you definitely should. I'll put some of the gameplay from my clone up on the screen right now, but it's a game that uses your phone's gyroscope to control the main character as you're climbing up like a vertical platformer. I wanted to show you guys today kind of how sometimes I find inspiration for projects and show you like what I did to the sample project to make it something that I could use in my own project. I first want to show you how to get to the sample projects from the community. You're going to go to 8th Wall and go to Project Library, and then on this right side over here, you're going to go to All Projects and Community Projects. I was looking through these community projects and saw the gyroscope controller. Camilo Medina is another amazing developer, and Camilo used gyroscope to recreate Temple Run, which is an infinite runner that uses your gyro to move left and right. When I saw this, I wanted to make Doodle Jump. Again, it's a vertical platformer, so a little bit different, but that gyroscope component of it is super important to the game. So I wanted to honor that game and kind of make a clone of it myself. And to do that, I actually ended up cloning Camilo's project right here. So if you actually look at code, though, the two things that we're using in our project are the gyroscope manager and the gyroscope permissions. Camilo does a fantastic job with comments. So I read through all of his comments to kind of understand what was going on with these controllers, and then cloned the project, or you can just copy and paste those scripts and put them in your own project. So you can find my game at 8thwall.com/DCLN, and then it's this game called Bot Bounce. You can look in here, and I actually have the same gyro manager, and I still have the gyro permissions in here as well. Now, it's not the exact same as when Camilo used it in his project. Camilo was grabbing this gamma value like I do, and grabbing the rotation, the side-to-side rotation, to determine which of 3 lanes the character is going to sit in based off of the rotation of the gamma. I am actually taking the gamma value right here. So if we go into my gyro manager script, I'm grabbing this same gamma value, which is right here, and I am dispatching the exact value of the rotation in degrees, and then I'm also dispatching a normalized value. So I have a min and max that the rotation can be. Based off of that, I'm exporting a normalized value, so like it's 80% of the maximum, and that helps me because I'm actually using the gamma rotation based off of the min and max values to increase and decrease the velocity. So in my game, there's not just 3 lanes. Your character constantly has velocity going left or right. And the further you have it rotated, the faster the character rotates to the left. And that's all based off of this normalized value right here. So again, I saw this mechanic, saw something that I thought could use it as well, and literally just copied it and then played around with it until I had something that I could use inside of my game. I did want to jump into the code just a little bit. So I already cloned this project. If we look inside of the code, each of the code snippets has comments at the top saying like what some of the main things inside of the script is, what some of the main listeners are, and then the dependencies, and then kind of like a quick summary of what the script is doing. We're not going to go deep into any of these scripts, but we're covering all of them at like a very surface level. So first we're going to jump into the audio manager. This is just where we're playing our music and our sound effects whenever we play them inside of the game. We're listening for different events, and then we're just playing different sounds depending on when these events are dispatched. Inside of our camera bounds, I am creating a video on this script very soon. Hopefully it'll be out next week. This is definitely a more complicated script that I made for this project. Essentially what this does, though, is it converts the 3D game engine into a 2.5D, friendly engine. One of the limiting factors of web mobile games is you can't get the camera bounds very well. You can't create a scene inside of the screen bounds of your mobile device. So what this does is it raycasts from the corners of your device to a specific plane in right now the Z dimension, grabs the distance between the 2 points using world space, and tells me how many units across the game is at that specific Z distance. And then inside of this script, I actually go in and submit a dimension to adjust to and a number of units. So I will say I actually want this to be 16 units wide in the width, and it will move the game across the Z axis so that the game is only 16 units wide before you hit the side of the screen. Essentially what this is doing is adjusting the game world so that it fits inside of the screen dimensions that you're using correctly. This is really important for this game specifically because in Doodle Jump, the character rotates around, so it jumps all the way from the left side and then reappears on the right. There's wrapping in the game, and that's a very important part of Doodle Jump. So I had to come up with a way to wrap efficiently, and this is my solution to that. And you can actually find a sample project for this script in this screen-bound sample project. And this goes over all of that a little bit more in depth. We also have a camera controller that moves the camera up whenever the character lands on top of a new platform so that we're in vision in the space of the game again and so that we can see our character. Something important for actually the gyro controls is you can't enable gyro controls on an iOS device unless you have an HTML and CSS button. For those of you that don't know, Eighth Wall Studio uses Canvas to create the in-game UI that you can create inside of the studio. So any of these UI elements right here use Canvas. And that's not an eligible way to enable gyroscope in iOS. You have to click a button and take a user action in an HTML and CSS created button. So I am inside of this create UI script injecting HTML into my project just for this one button. All the other UI is using the built-in UI system inside of 8th Wall, but this one button has to be the HTML and CSS. So I create it here in Create UI and actually inject it here inside of this UI handler. So if we scroll down a little bit, we can see this create onboarding screen. I'm just going to search for it. We have our gyro card that we are appending to our UI container, and then we're appending our UI container to our body. That makes it available in our body.html, and then we can add CSS to it. We import the CSS here as well, and then you style it like any other HTML and CSS button. But inside of this script, we're adding our event listeners. So for a regular HTML and CSS button, you have to add in a normal add event listener. So I use document.getElement by ID and then add event listener, listening for the click. And then we're using the handle click script, and we're only going to run it once. And then once it runs, we actually go in here and remove the event. So let me look here. Bam. And then we remove event here. So that's where we're doing it in this instance. But if you are going to add in UI buttons with get element by ID, best practice is to on enter in a defined state inside of a state machine, add the event listener, and then on exit, when you leave that state, remove the event listener. We don't want event listeners dangling inside of our project. Then for other buttons, we're using .listen, which creates an entity component system, or the ECS input system that's built into 8th Wall Studio to grab a UI click event. So in this, we're listening for the mute button to be clicked, and then we're toggling the mute value. So the nice thing about .listen and using event listeners that are from the entity component system inside of 8th Wall is you don't have to add them and then remove them. .listen does that for you whenever you enter a state. So whenever you enter the game over, or prep game state with this defined state group, we add the event listener and we remove it whenever we leave that specific state. So that's the UI controller. It does do something very important in this project, which is create this inner HTML window pop-up for iOS gyroscope and enablement, which you have to do for iOS. That actually uses our gyroscope permission script. So we use gyroscope permissions whenever we click on that button inside of the UI container that we're creating. Ground controller is another very simple script. All it is doing is whenever we enter our visible state, the ground is visible, and when we hit our hidden state, the ground is hidden. We toggle those for whenever we start our game at the beginning, we make it visible, and then whenever we get past a certain height threshold, we make it invisible. We have our gyro manager, which is again just taking in this gamma value, which is the side-to-side rotation of our device, and dispatching that changed rotation value so that we can change the velocity on the player controller. Our platform controller, this has all 4 platforms in here. So we have normal platforms, which just normal. They just sit there and you jump on them. You can pass through the bottom of them. And then whenever you hit the top of them, it launches the player up. Spiked platforms actually prevent you from being able to jump through the bottom of the platform. So if you hit the bottom of it, then the game ends. You die. The moving platforms move side to side. And then the platform one-shots, whenever you land on top of it, it falls off the screen so you can't keep bouncing on it. You can see here I'm actually doing this a little bit different. I'm using a variable and registering the component to the variable right here, and then exporting this variable in this script. And I do this because inside of our player controller, we are importing in those values, and then let's look at spike platform. So whenever we collide, our head on our character collides with the platform, if it's a spike platform, then we kill the character. So we use the spike platform, which we create inside of our platform controller, and then we can do .has, and then world, and then the entity ID of the entity that we are colliding with to see if the spiked platform is attached to the entity that we're colliding with. So that's pretty cool. Again, I'll say that again. We're using .has along with the exported component that we created inside of our platform controller to see if the spike platform component is attached to the entity that we are colliding with when we hit our head against something inside of the game. So in this instance, if it's the spiked platform, then we die. If we hit our head on the spiked platform, then the game ends. This is a little trick that you can use for a lot of different things inside of 8th Wall Studio. I use it a lot for tags. So like if I'm tagging ground, or if I'm tagging like lava or something, I can just create, let's go back to this platform controller. I can just create kind of like I'm doing in normal. I'm creating the name right here, and then I can honestly just not have any of this stuff. And that is kind of what I use as a tag. So in other games, I would use this to just tag a normal platform. And then that would work as like a tag system. So try that out. Very important thing, doesn't get talked about enough. Please, if you need to like hear that again, rewind, because .has is something that's like a sneaky, overpowered thing inside of 8th Wall. So check it out for sure. But the platform spawner is a very, very simple spawner for the game. Basically, it just is using whenever the character hits a platform, it's going X amount of units above, and then creating another platform like higher above the character so we never run out of platforms. It's just using a probability system to determine which platform to spawn. We're actually using a pooling system in here. This is our pool. We have 25 normal platforms in here and then like 10 of all the other platforms. Instead of instantiating a new platform every single time, whenever we want to instantiate a new platform, we are essentially just going to the container, grabbing the first child that's there, and then using position to set it at the new position where we're spawning in an entity. Then when the platform goes below a certain distance between the last platform that the character landed on, it takes it from the game scene and puts it back in its pooling container. I love using pools instead of instantiating things. I feel like I get much better performance, and I would highly recommend kind of checking out my structure for that here. So the last script we need to go over is the player controller script. The player controller script is basically looking for event listeners with the collisions. So whenever we collide with something like we talked about earlier with the spike platform, we're checking the collision to see if it is a specific thing that we're colliding with. In this case, for the head, we're checking to see if it's a spike platform. And then for feet, we're checking to see if it is any other type of platform. If we hit it with our feet, then we jump off the top of it. And if it is a single-use platform, then we tell that platform, hey, we landed on top of you, now fall. The other thing that we're doing here is whenever we hit the platform, we're applying a velocity upwards. I'm not using the physics system inside of 8th Wall. I'm using colliders, but I'm actually creating my own physics, just using the delta time inside of the on tick inside of a state to move the player. And then we're actually listening for the new rotation update. We grab the normalized number, and then we're multiplying our normalized value times our velocity value right here. That's how we determine our side-to-side velocity. Not too difficult. We're just honestly changing the position of the character every single frame. So something else I wanted to show you guys, all of the assets from this project were made using the 8th Wall Asset Lab. You can see I am kind of talking over the creation of some of these assets right here, but I love Asset Lab. I think that it's a fantastic tool. I was super excited when they announced it, and I've been using it in a ton of my projects. But essentially, it uses different training models to create assets for your game. You can see you can create images and then take those images and then create 3D models. I didn't rig any of those 3D models in this project, but you can definitely do that too. It's a great way to create assets that fit the game that you're making, and you can get a lot of credits for a pretty decent price. So I think for one image using the ChatGPT model that's inside of Asset Lab, it costs like 2.5 credits to make an image, and then you can use 2 more credits to make a 3D model. You can use all the way up to 90 credits to make a 3D model if you need like a really detailed one. So for my main character, I actually paid 90 credits to make it, but it's a very easy way to at least get temp assets that you can use inside of a project. This game isn't like a finalized game per se. It's a game really made to teach developers about 8th Wall Studio, and it's not like something that I'm putting out there and expecting thousands of people to play like a real video game. So I felt like these temp assets were good enough, but I was really satisfied with a lot of these assets. I love the character that I made, and most of the platforms turned out amazing too. Some of them I had to dink around with a little bit, but I really did enjoy using Asset Lab. And the 3D model editor that is inside of Asset Lab is really, really nice to change textures, to compress things, to make the assets fit better inside of your project. You can go in, you can compress the textures, but then you can go in and actually simplify the mesh as well and get files that used to be like 6 megabytes down to kilobytes, which is really, really cool. So please check out Asset Lab. I definitely loved it for this project. That game was a ton of fun to make. I really love Doodle Jump. It was one of my favorite games when I was in high school and middle school. I played it a ton, and it's really fun to be able to recreate it using Eighth Wall Studio. Um, Camilo definitely inspired me to make this game with his sample project. I am going to put his YouTube channel in the description of this video. He has a great channel as well that is in Spanish and English. So if you speak Spanish and are trying to learn, I think it's a Spanish first, but he also translates everything to English. So definitely check out there and um, learn from him as well. He's a fantastic developer, and please like and comment on this video and subscribe to the channel because I do definitely plan on posting more content here in the near future. So thanks, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.